Good evening. First of all, let me say thanks for having such a large crowd here to attend Fox Chapel Area School District's first local and state legislative conversations in our district. I'm really appreciative of you taking the time to take time out of your busy schedule to be here, and I think you're going to find tonight very interesting, and hopefully this is something I don't want to scare away our legislators that we don't plan to do every year, but maybe every other year to get some conversations going. I'm Gene Freeman. I have the honor of being the superintendent of Fox Chapel Area School District. And what I'm here to do tonight basically is to introduce the moderator and then say thank you and then skedaddle to my seat. So with that said, I would like to introduce Dr. Maureen Porter, who I would like to just read some things that she has done in her career because she has a great resume and has so much wonderful experience. Dr. Porter received her undergrad honors degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in German psychology and holds a women's studies certificate. She studied abroad for 2 years, starting as a Rotary Exchange student in 1985. I'm a Rotarian, so that's terrific. She has an MA in Cultural Anthropology and a PhD in Education Policy Analysis from Stanford University. She won a National Dissertation of the Year award with her dissertation, which was on systemic statewide legislative-driven school reform in Kentucky and how it played out in particular school districts, including radical changes in governance, financing, and community participation. She is a member of the faculty at Pitt since 1996. She is now tenured and serving in several leadership positions, including admissions and program development. She has had experience working with the U.S. Department of Education, where she completed a white paper for the Senate and White House on federal financial aid. She also helped to develop public policy briefs for George H.W. Bush's American 2000 education policy. She has served as special assistant to Dr. Ruth Randall, the first female state commissioner of education for Minnesota, and had various duties while working for the secretary there. She has worked for UNESCO and the World Bank in Egypt, and worked with visiting administrators from China through the Confucius Institute. And if you don't know about the Confucius Institute, you should look that up because that's a very interesting entity to delve into. She also has a visiting professorship at the University of Augsburg, Germany, where she frequently teaches and conducts research, and you usually do that in German, correct? Okay? Locally, she served on the Kerr Elementary Site-Based Council and has been active with the PTA and the school garden. And it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Porter, who will be our moderator for this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I like that. That's very friendly. You kind of warmed them up for me. I have the honor of providing the moderation here for tonight. I'm going to try to find a sweet spot here in the room where I'm not too close to some of the other microphones. We have a wonderful evening of 3 of our guests. I send condolences here from Representative Bernadine. He is meeting with our governor-elect, so we excuse him for that because he's going to be even more effective on our behalf. What you have is a wonderful program that was put together for you by the district, and inside you have a card. So the format this evening, we have the majority of the evening is going to be organized around 10 questions. We had a number of forum meetings and meetings with administrators and parents, and the opportunity for people to write in through the website. They identified 10 of the most important topics that we'd like to talk about with our representatives and our senator. And this is what's going to be, each of them is going to have a chance to talk for about 3 minutes on each of these 10 topics. While they're doing that, you have the chance to use this card to add anything else that you would like to include into the discussion. Any particular individual question you have or something that is an interest to the group that you represent, just put it on here. And if you'd like, you can put your name on the bottom. That's optional. But we're going to be collecting them after the 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, 10th questions. We have a wonderful cadre of students here from the U.S. American Government class, and they're going to be collecting your questions, and then up here we are going to be able to have Akil organize them for us, and all of your questions then will be gathered together and shared with them for which ones we get to this evening, and the ones that they'll take with them as they go back to work. So you'll first have the organized discussion. We'll have a chance, hopefully, to talk through some of the questions that you've raised, and then we'll have an open forum after we adjourn for you to enjoy one another's company. And many of them have also brought quite a lot of information for the table out in the hallway, so feel free to take many things from there. And the district has been a wonderful host and has also set up a nice cookie table for you to enjoy. So, at this point, I would like very much to invite up John Creed. And we have 3 of the students who are going to come up. So come on to your person. They're going to come up and do their own introductions that they've worked hard to prepare for us tonight. Stand up, right? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jamrit Mbawa, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you our first legislator, Representative John Costa. Representative Costa is the current Democratic member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives from the 21st District. He graduated from Penn Hills High School in 1970, and after graduation, worked hard to start and run his own plumbing business. When his desire to serve the community resurfaced, Representative Costa became a part-time police officer in East Murphysport. His mission to serve paved the path to his 28 years in law enforcement. In 1979, he joined the Pittsburgh Police Department as an officer, and later in his life went on to become the commander. He won the seat for the 21st Legislative District in 2009, and today he serves as the Allegheny County Delegation Chairman. Representative Costa is a member of the House Gaming Oversight, Insurance, Judiciary, Policy and Rules Committees. His legislative priorities include public safety, animal protection, mental health services, and education. To keep up to date on Representative Costa's activities, feel free to follow him on Twitter at Rep. John Costa.
Hello, my name is Victoria Souza, and it is my privilege to introduce to you Representative Hal English. Representative Hal English is the current Republican representative of the 30th District in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. He is a 21-year resident of Hampton and Shaler Townships in Allegheny County, where he lives with his wife Sue and their 2 sons, Garrett and Jason. He has been practicing law since 1987. Representative English graduated with a bachelor's degree from West Virginia University and received his law degree from the University of Baltimore. He enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1981 and was commissioned as a Marine Corps officer in 1984, where he practiced criminal law while serving on active duty. After 30 years of service, he retired from the Marine Corps Reserves with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. In 1998, he established his own law firm, H.A. English & Associates, with offices in Hampton and Ross Townships. As an accredited Veterans Administration attorney, he assists as power of attorney and legal custodian for numerous veterans. As of his first term beginning in 2013, Hal serves on the Aging and Older Adult Services Committee, Tourism and Recreation Committee, Game and Fisheries Committee, and Education Committee. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Representative Hal English.
Good evening. My name is Greta Altmeyer, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you tonight Senator Randy Bielankovich. As a lifelong resident of Allegheny County, Senator Bielankovich has previously been elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives 3 times. He now serves as a state senator to more than 255,000 constituents of the 40th Senatorial District. Since August 2012, he's been working to represent the needs and interests of these constituents by his service as chairman on the Aging and Youth Committee, in addition to service in appropriations, and on the Community, Economic, and Recreational Development Committee. Previously, Senator Bielankovich dedicated 27 years to his work as a sergeant for the Shaler Township Police Department. During this time, he spent 6 years as a public school instructor in the anti-drug and life skills program there. He remains dedicated in his work to cutting taxes and providing business tax reform, as well as true school property tax, which I'm sure we'll hear more about tonight. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Up to the mic. So the main point of this evening is to be able to focus on the topics that were raised through the different public forums. We're going to be starting with a different person each time, so he has the opportunity to lay out the scene, and then each person will have a few minutes after that to just begin to introduce his level of expertise and interest in the area. And I'm sure that you'll all have opportunities to follow up on many of these very, very interesting topics later. The first question, we're going to start with Senator Bielankovich. There's a great deal of conversation in political circles about public schools being failures. What's your opinion on the state of public schools in Pennsylvania? And what do you see as some of the biggest issues overall facing public education today in these, for example, the next 5 years?
Well, thank you. I can tell you my personal opinion, and is that over here in my area, we have some really good schools. Now, my professional opinion, we have really good schools. There are some schools that are underperforming, there's no doubt about it. Some of those schools are in areas where there's low economic development. There's some other issues that they have in their community. There's high crime rates in those areas. You'll find that the schools, maybe the children in those schools don't perform quite as well. A good example of that is Philadelphia School District, huge school district. And they're really having their issues over there. Very difficult time. And there's some other schools like Allentown and Harrisburg. They have some big issues too. But overall, I somewhat get upset when I hear some people saying about how poorly our schools perform. There are some that does happen. But for the most part, I'm pretty proud of our public schools. My daughter's a public school teacher. She teaches first grade. And one of my proudest moments was when she decided that she wanted to be a teacher. And she decided that when she was a very young lady, when they would play school, all her friends, and nearly every one of those children are now teachers. So it's something they really wanted to do. So it was a good thing to do. What's the number one problem facing the schools right now? Of course, it's funding. But throwing dollars at something isn't always the answer. But the reason why it's a funding issue is because the pension crisis that we have, which is, I know people want to downplay it, but I can tell you it's very much a reality. Our budget, our general budget is going to increase about $590 million this year because of the pension issue that we have. Next year, another $600 million on top of that. And the next year, about another $600 million on top of that. And then it will level off, but it's still at that high rate. It's not going to go down. So that is the number one issue we have, and it creates problems with our budget because it costs us more to borrow money because we've been downgraded twice now because we have not settled the pension issue.
I'm a product of public schools. My mother's a public school teacher, so I'm very much a fan of public schools. I think certainly in the 30th district, which I have, is Richland, Hampton, Shaler, Fox Chapel. We've got great school districts. We've got great parents, we've got great communities, and they help, and that's why we have just really good high achievement scores. I could say, well, I'm doing a good job, but I have a duty, I think, also to the entire Commonwealth. So I do have to look at Pittsburgh schools, Philadelphia schools, and we have to look and be responsible and be creative as to how to make sure that students that don't have the greatest living environment face daily problems that probably no one in this room really has to face. How do they get a good public education? So I do think the schools are doing well, but we have a lot of work, and it is tied to funding.
Like Representative English, I too am a product of public schools. I strongly support our public schools. I think they're getting a lot of the bad rap from, unfortunately, the media and the public perception that schools aren't going as well. I can tell you this, I can assure you, we have teachers and administrators who work very, very diligently to make sure that our children get good educations and get good time. But unfortunately, like in the city of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and stuff, there's social issues that are causing problems with the schools. And it's very difficult for these teachers to meet the minimum standards that they need to meet. So they turn around and they get a bad rap. You have a child in your class for 40, 45 minutes a day, and you expect to work magic. Let's face it, none of us like homework, right guys? Okay, well, it's part of the thing. How can anybody teach you in 40 minutes and not send something home with you? In Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and some other areas that aren't doing as well as certain areas in our Commonwealth, it's hard enough getting the kids to go to school because unfortunately for them, it's not their fault. They have no one out there pushing them out the door to make sure that they get out there and do what they need to do. And no support units at home. So the social issues need to be addressed as well as the public school, but our public schools are getting a bad rap because of that. I went to Penn Hills High School. It was, my class was 1,200 people. I think the whole high school has about 1,200 people. So when you look at these different things, and there's other things that are being injected too. There's cyber schools and charter schools that people think are, they believe they're better. Personally, it's not my belief. I believe it's an option or an opportunity for someone else to make money. But our public schools are just in the limelight now, especially with social media and things like that. And I think they're getting a bad rap. But I think that working hard together to bring up that perception will, benefit us all. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate your differentiating between what we often see in the media and the really hard work that's going on in the grounds and the really important work that's happening in public schools. And I think each of you have brought up a couple topics that are going to be some of the later questions. So our second question is about special education mandates. And we know that these mandates that come from the federal and the state level often create considerable financial burdens for the school districts. What's your opinion on special education funding and how it could change? And for this, we're going to begin with Representative English.
Special education funding. I'm going to give you my limited 2 years on in the legislature, what I'm absorbing. But in 13 and 14, there was a special education commission that was put together, and they took more than a year to go around and take testimony and hear information from all the stakeholders. And a new special education funding formula has been adopted to try to make it a little more fair and balanced. There was an assumption of I think it was 16% in every school district were special education. That's really not correct. There's also differing layers of special education needs. So the special education funding formula, view it as, there's some students that just take an incredible amount of time and effort, which translates to dollars, and then some others that would be lesser time and effort, and then some others with some special education needs. I don't want to use the word minimal, but certainly less. So trying to group and component those various students into what is the truer measure in every school district, so that the funding can flow to what is really happening in that school district, rather than these assumptions. So that's what's going on. There are federal mandates tied, so I do believe, really, from the federal level, we do need more specific dollars coming for special education funding.
Sure, you could make a big difference at the state level.
Yes.
Colleague Costa.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Representative English, but I truly believe that the funding needs to be dispersed in a fairer manner. But before you can do that, we have to stop mandating. We have to stop mandates without funding. In other words, what we're doing is we're saying the public schools have to do this, public schools have to do that, and flip a coin on how you're going to do it. We have to make sure that funding is available to them, so that if there's a special program, special needs, it goes to the area that's needed. We have to track it a little bit better. We can't come back and visit every 5-6 years, because let's face it, people move. The needs of the communities move as well as those people. So you need to make sure that those needs are met, and it needs to be done with funding. You can't look what it costs just to do a regular student school. Okay, and then you're going to have special ed teachers that you're going to give them a mandate and not fund it. You can't do that. So I believe that if we do those certain things and we check more periodically, a little bit more about how we're doing it, we can do better. I hope so.
Yeah, as far as the special ed funding commission, I'm supportive of that. We were just about ready to bring it up for a vote in the Senate, and the Senate blew. We had a number of members who wanted to do some certain calculations in favor of charter schools and charter schools in their area, and that pretty much killed that bill. That was a shame that happened. So when we go back in session in January, I hope it's one of those things we start on. I'm a big believer that the money needs to follow the student when it comes to special ed. It needs to follow the student. If some school can't deliver what it needs to deliver for that child, and after the professionals and the parents can get together, if they decide the child has to go some other place, and that's what it has to be. It comes special education. There's right now, the city of Pittsburgh, I'm a little bit at odds, I guess, with them on a position on a charter school to go to my old alma mater, North Catholic. There's a gentleman who wants to buy North Catholic, set up a charter school. It will be open to everyone who wants to key on the problem of dyslexia. And I found out there's a whole lot of people that really don't understand the complexity of dealing with somebody that has dyslexia. And yet those children can perform as well as anyone else if they get the right type of training and education. And I'm supportive of that. And there's an appeal procedure going on right now. And I've made my thoughts known on that. So I think special education, we need to address it right away. But I do think it needs to follow the student, wherever that student goes.
Thank you very much. We have a very wide, interesting set of questions, and I think the folks who are here tonight who represent administration and the board and the community, the media, are all very glad to hear many different things you have to say on these topics. We have a third question that's also related to funding, both the distribution of basic funds and special education funds again. But we have a couple of follow-ups that came up. The first, and this is why we gave you a note sheet, so you can take parts. There are 3 parts to this question. How likely is it that legislation will pass that eliminates local real estate taxes as a source of revenue for districts? The second part is, which taxes would take the place of real estate taxes? And the third is, how do you plan to equitably distribute these funds among the 500 school districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I get the three-part compound. That's what I get for being last. That's the last, guys. Well,
Alphabetically, though, you're first.
that's hard. There you go. First part of the question is basically distribute the funds. Let's see. As far as getting this legislation passed to, replace those funds, it's going to be very, very difficult. Very difficult. It seems like when these things come up, everybody's got their hands in the pot. Like Senator Balakovich said, that they were working on one bill because of the cyber charter schools and certain districts of other legislators, that they basically, it killed a good bill that was going through. And so they're going to have to redo it and try to move forward with it again. So I don't know the possibility of it making its way through. And as far as eliminating property tax for schools, and where are we going to get that money? I don't see property tax being eliminated. When I first took office, I thought it would be a great idea to eliminate property tax. The problem with that is property tax is your truly sure revenue coming in. When the economy's good, sales tax goes up, and those other taxes, they all go up. So times are good. So you can pay your bills, you can do this, you can do that. But when times go bad, and the sales tax revenue coming into the Commonwealth drops, and the other taxes, inheritance and things, they get dropped, the only surefire number you have to keep a stable, level playing field is your property tax. So I think it's very unlikely that our property tax, there's ways of maybe bringing it down. Somebody is 65 or older living in a residence or something, maybe we need to give them a moratorium. So while they're living in that house, owned and occupied, we can look at replacing that with some kind of a sales tax or something. But as far as eliminating it for the rest of for time, no, I can't see that happening. So when a young man or a young lady comes and buys that house, it goes back on the tax rolls again. So it's like a rolling system. That's what I believe.
The elimination of property tax is very popular. I think if you went and you polled it, somewhere probably about 70 to 75% of the people want it. I'm 64 years old. I'll be 65 in about 6-7 months. I'd love to have property tax elimination. Okay? And sometimes we get these warm, fuzzy feeling bills that at first started out just to do that, to kind of just settle people down a little bit about to make them think we were doing something. And actually it was just ideas put out there. And it started back in 2007 when I first came into office. That bill has been changed, I cannot tell you how many times. And every time they think they come up with the numbers to put it all together to make it work, about a month or a month and a half later, after there's people starting to dig into it a little bit more, they find out they're off. 200 million, 300 million, 400 million. Every time. This has been going on since 2007. I would love to see property tax elimination. The problem is there's only certain combinations to work with. The two big general fund revenue makers are your personal income tax that you pay on the wages you earn, and the sales tax, the money we take in on the items you buy with your wages. You take in maybe about $3.4 billion per 1% increase in the PIT tax. 3.4. Remember that number. 3.4 billion. On the sales tax, you take in about 1.4 billion on the sales tax. Now you need approximately, and I think the number's higher number, I don't know, but you need approximately $9 billion to eliminate residential property tax across the board. Now, if they raise the PIT 1%, you raise the sales tax 1%, you're not at $9 billion. So what do? You start increasing. The other place you can really go, I can't increase your salary so that you pay more taxes, but I can increase your sales tax, or I can increase the things that you pay sales tax on. Now, that's when they all come out of the woodwork. If you're an attorney, if you're a doctor, if you're a candy maker, all of a sudden we're taxing your services or the product you make, and you come to me and you say, you're killing my business. That's what kills it almost every other time. So it's not an easy problem. The other part of your question, what would you see as an answer? The only thing I can see right now, well, we should keep working on this, and we have a Senator Argyle who continuously works on this item. He's doing a great job. We thought we actually had the numbers to do it, and then we just had to find out for the public if you wanted to go that route. Do you want us to increase your PIT tax? Do you want us to increase the sales tax, and also on the number of items that you pay sales tax on? And then it kind of fell apart. I would like to see, at the very least, a freeze on the property taxes for senior citizens once they hit the age of 65, and for people, we do it the same way we do on other property tax things. Or if you're 60 or 62 and you're a widow, we could do that, but we'd have to get that money from someplace. We could probably get that somehow from the casino money. But how would you distribute it? Let me ask you this. How many of you think we do a great job in Harrisburg or Washington, D.C. with your money, distributing it? All right.
Hands are going up around the whole room for the TV audience. Everybody behind the camera.
Yeah, you want to give that all to us? You want to give that all to us? If I'm a powerful senator, you better believe my school district's going to be taken care of. If that new guy came up the block, or maybe one of these reps here, okay, in their area, they come on new. Dawn's been there for a while. Dawn's will go take care of Representative English. You'll get left out. So it is a problem. And the other issue is I don't see how you could possibly have a property tax school elimination unless we have a statewide contract with the teachers. Every school district has different levels that they progress up the wage thing. Nothing wrong with it. But every school district's different. The jumps between each level are different. They have different numbers. Some have 19 steps. Some might have 20-some steps. Until you get that all together, I don't know how you can possibly do, without having a statewide contract, how you can possibly do property tax elimination. I don't know how to do that.
Thank you, and we certainly don't want to leave out Representative English, so you have the last word here.
Just in that hypothetical, I do represent the district that I used to represent, so if something like that happened. I myself have been a homeowner taxpayer for the last 25 years, and I'm sure the discussion's been past 40 plus years, and it'll probably be the next 25 to 40 years, I hate to say. But our property values are tied large part to the school districts. I want to live in Fox Chapel or O'Hara, Lawrence. I want to be out there because of Fox Chapel School District. That helps. There's a relationship there. It helps to hold your property values because of the school district. So it's a very challenging problem. I agree with Senator Vlahovic. The senior, the family member that has been in that house for a long while, and now around them, all the properties have escalated. Their property tax bill has escalated. So that's very much a challenge for those seniors. And there needs to be some, I'll say, partial freeze. I don't think if you're a senior and you move to Fox Chapel, for example, and you turn 65, it can be exempt. There needs to be, I think, some longevity tail to being in that house to help preserve it. Because there are people that have some resources and they move about. And just because you hit a magic age, I don't think it is the sole reason. So, but it will be a continuing problem when these people are in the legislature someday, I fear.
It's a nice thought. At this point, I'm going to welcome up some more of the U.S. government students. They're going to come through the audience again and collect cards, if you have them, with questions and topics that you'd like us to put into the second part of the presentation. And while they do that, we'll move into a much simpler question, which builds on a topic that's already been brought up, funding before pensions. So what would your proposal be to repair the current state pension and retirement system so that it's two things? First of all, that it's affordable to districts and taxpayers, and second, so it's sustainable for future retirees in the public system. And I think we're back around to you. Yes. Thank you.
I'm one of the few Republicans that likes defined benefit plans. I like them. Because if you know what you're going to retire at, you get it every month. I don't have to take care of you some other way. You know what it is. But we got a dilemma. We can argue about how this all happened, but it's there. We're writing about a $50 billion problem. $50 billion. And if we don't do something with the current membership of PESers, which constitutionally you have a real problem doing, they would have to agree to it. The only thing you can do there to help solve the problem is go from a 2.5 calculator to a 2, because that 2.5 probably should have never been granted. And whoever the actuary was who did it, I don't know, but it should have never been done. And the other thing is taking out the money that you put in and being able to withdraw it out of the pension plan when you leave and still collect the stipend, reduced, not all that much. It doesn't work. You are now not vested in that pension anymore. Now, legally they tell us we can't force that, and of course the PESers group are not going to consent to that. So what do? We go to a defined contribution plan, some known as a 401k. Actually, it's a little different than the 401k. And that will be just for new members, And but there's resistance to that too. The people in PESers do not want to see that happen. I can't blame them. They're a family. It's like they're fellow brothers and sisters, and they don't want any less benefits for anybody else. But I see no other way to stop the bleeding. However, when the new members come in their 401k, the schools are putting their money into a 401k as the employee is, but there's no new money coming into the old system. And the members of PESers are correct. Over a period of years, the state, the employers of your people in your pension system, the employers are, it's by I lost the words here. There's two components to paying the contributions that must go into the pension plan. You have two employers. One is the school and one is the state. Basically, they split it down the middle and they send the payment in. In a few years, there's few school districts that are going to be able to make that payment. Few, if any. We're talking an additional $592 million this year. We got to add to the pension to bring it up to par. We are thinking, listen to this, our calculations are that at the end of the year, June 31st, that's the end of our fiscal year. That's when we're supposed to have the new budget done. We may only have $1 million over what we estimate. 1 million. That's it. So we're in big trouble. And no one wants to take benefits away from anyone. But we've got to come up with a solution because the state and the school districts collectively, over a period of years, failed to put in approximately $12 billion into the pension plan for PESers. $12 billion. That's a lot of money. So the school districts and the state together failed to put that money in there. But that's not the whole part of the problem. Don't forget, we had 2 or 3 bad economic times in a decade. And that killed us too. But between the 2.5 calculator, taking your contributions out, the downturns in the economy, and the lack of putting money in there that should have been put in there by the state and by the teachers, all created this problem. So, bad situation.
Well, thank you for outlining that. It's one of the advantages of going first. You can lay out many of the things and leave it to the next folks here to add to the conversation.
So when I came in 2 years ago, that was the issue, pensions. And now 2 years later, that's the issue, pensions. And we talked about pension reform. There was some active movement on a bill, Representative Tobash, and it was labeled the Tobash-Corbett bill, and that did not get enough traction to pass. I think had that passed, it still would not really have helped the financial impact this year, next year, the next couple of years. In essence, it would have been chopping off the later years, sort of like a high interest rate. Well, if I can chop off the last 5 years of that high interest, I think that's a start. So we're going to retackle that one, and I don't think we can survive if that alone is not completed. But I think now, because it keeps rising, 600 million or 592 million this year, and approximately another 600 next year, we have to keep doing something, because otherwise we're looking up in the sky for revenue to come falling down. So it is the most challenging for the Republican-controlled legislature and the Democratic governor. So we're going to have to work together and accomplish this.
I agree with both of my colleagues. Senator Milakovich described it very well. Every month, every year, when you're working, the school teachers and the administrators and so on, the workers out there, it comes out of their paycheck. Their pension contribution comes out of their paycheck. And now we've got this big problem with pension, because what happens is the municipalities, the school districts and so on are borrowing against that pension funds and not paying into the pension funds for whatever reason. And we just can't continue that kind of thing. And look what it's gotten us into. I think what happened, right now there's a bad perception about pension. There's a bad perception about school teachers and their lucrative pensions and salaries. They're off, they work 9 months out of the year and they stay home and they can do whatever they want. Well, back in the day when the economy was good, everybody that works in public service took these jobs because in the future there was a pension, there was this, but they took them for less money. Your school teachers don't make a ton of money. They really don't. And so they're being bashed now, including public workers, for the lucrative pensions that they have. They're not lucrative, believe me, by no means. But when times were good, people didn't want the jobs that our public servants are doing. Times get bad, then everybody looks at them and says, why do they have all these good benefits and stuff, and we have nothing now? So, to solve a problem, you need public support. There's not a lot of support for us to raise any revenue to solve the pension problem, because they believe that it's been abused by, unfortunately, the perception is by the workers. And it isn't that. It's been abused by the actual government that set up the pension. So, and what we're going to do, we're going to keep working on it. I can't make any promises, but we definitely, like my colleagues have both said, we definitely have to do something with it, or we're going to be in deep trouble. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, because part of the point of this evening is to be able to provide that kind of clarification and information for the public, because they're really part of the same democratic process that helps give you information and gives you ideas of top concerns that they all are dealing with. One of the questions that we had shared with you before, and is already coming to the fore here among your questions that have been brought up to the table, is a totally different topic. We have had a number of different assessments here, from the PSSAs to Keystone exams, to looking for tests that can more efficiently incorporate project-based learning. And we'd like to have you talk a little bit about the Pennsylvania Core, which is modeled after the Common Core. Did you support Pennsylvania Core's implementation in the public school system? Why or why not? And Representative English, you have the pleasure of starting with that one.
The concept of Common Core developed nationally. There's a lot of stakeholders, education, government, the workforce, trying to come up with standards so that, if the student, pick a state, Louisiana, also moved or transferred to here, there would be some basic educational assumptions or criteria that they would fulfill. So kind of the common core of what, the bare level minimum that we would expect. Senator Vlahovic in the police department, myself in the military, and Representative Costa in the police department. A basic level of assumption between a police officer or a Marine, or a military member, just that bare bones. So that's sort of the broad starting point, I guess. The language of it is Common Core versus Pennsylvania Core. So they're pretty close, and a lot of people get outraged with Common Core. When I came to the legislature, we recognized that issue, and with Pennsylvania Core, I did a resolution last year, was unanimously approved in the House.
Wow.
And that went. Well, that went to, and it was done before the Education Department put out the regulations, the Chapter 4 regulations last summer. So it's to give them some guidance, basically to make sure that our Education Department understood we wanted a couple of things that the fear of Common Core was. And some of those real particulars were getting information or data mining. So we wanted to make sure that that was not taking place in Pennsylvania, and it's not. We also wanted to make sure that the local school district picked the curriculum, not a national or not statewide, but your local school district reviews and picks the curriculum. So each school district here in Pennsylvania has that ability. Now, with that being said, I will tell you, I think an analogy would be like class rings. Fox Chapel School District can go out and make their own class ring, okay, and sell it to the students. But to some extent, when they're purchasing school books or looking at curriculum, I think they might pick some of the national rings. I had Jostens, and I think they're still doing it maybe in the school district. You guys get it? Yes. So there you go. Same thing with a lot of the literature and the books. So there's a pushback, I think, nationally, and because of the language of Common Core and PA Core, I really don't think it's correctly here or prevalent. So our Board of Education, I think, did a good job in trying to allow you in this school district and every school district to have control of what criteria you're putting to your students and what kind of rigor you want to apply.
Thank you. I think I voted against that resolution. Basically, what Hal said is exactly right. But let's face it, we all need, law enforcement, Senator Vlahovic and I both were police officers, obviously, and you need a standard somewhere, a standard baseline. And you just can't have, like in Pennsylvania, 501 school districts, everybody going in their own direction. Because let's face it, if our children are moved from one school to another across the state, and the standards aren't set somewhere, then when they get to the other side of the state, either they're going to be way ahead and bored in their classrooms, or they're going to be way behind. So that we have to make sure that our classes and our schools have the opportunity, and it gives teachers, students, and administrators something to achieve and set their minds to, that these are the ideas of what we want to teach. And they fall within the guidelines. If you want to exceed the guidelines, that's up to you as individual districts. But we have to have a minimum guideline. And if there's no minimum, then, again, we run into problems. Thank you.
Yeah, overall, I don't support Common Core. I think we're testing these kids to death. I think the teachers are so often,
Homework test.
Well, it's like when No Child Left Behind came out. Who can argue with the concept that we don't want to leave any child behind? But then when they put it all together, instead of letting the right people put something together, we in government, we bureaucrats, we put the thing together and we screwed it all up. We tell you what to do. And then we don't fund you. We put these unfunded mandates on. they come out with the Keystone exams. And we did everything to kill those Keystone exams. And it got to the point we passed piece of legislation, we weren't going to fund it. We weren't going to put it in the budget. So Governor Rendell, he just went and took $20 million from something else and threw it in there. Next thing you know, we had a Keystone exam. Look, you need to do exams. There's no doubt about it. It's the way they have to be feasible. They have to be measurable, you know. They also have to be affordable. But you can't have teachers tying their whole time up worrying about this test is coming up. I got to teach that test because ultimately it's what happens by human nature. And it just doesn't work. Now, Common Core, our Common Core isn't real bad because it's pretty weak, Common Core. It's a weak Common Core. But see, I'd rather not have a weak Common Core. I'd rather not have it at all. We're going to have it, you know. But the PA Common Core is kind of weak. It's basically said, here's where we want you to be. You do what you have to do to get there. But we didn't give you any money to do that. So I'm not a big PA Common Core person. Pretty much, we didn't really have anything to do with it. The governors all got together throughout the country. And who started, basically, was the military. They said, we're getting people in the military, and they're not up to par just to start, you know, with training. And that's what started on. The business people came in. And even like your manufacturers, where a lot of people don't want their kids to go to, they say, don't ever say they're not going to college. You know, they got to go to college. They have to go to college. That's something they have to do. And some just want to, maybe they're real good with their hands, or like to build things or create things. And some in the machinery, they were coming and saying, hey, the math skills aren't there. Some of the science skills aren't there. So we got to do this. The one we overreacted, and we just went a little bit too far. But I'm sorry. I think you can get a lot by. Hey, anybody can instruct. Anybody can instruct that has decent intelligence and have it written in front of them and instruct. But a teacher inspires. You got to let them have that time to inspire, not teach it to a test. And that's just what I'm doing. Obviously, you get my trend toward PA Common Core.
Thank you, though. That's one of the lists I got the audience more lively and stirring here. We are going to be doing one more collection of cards after this next question, but during this time you have a chance to continue to write because we're going to move again to yet another topic, one that, of course, is of interest to many people in the room. Teacher evaluation is certainly also an interesting piece, and it's directly tied to testing and scores and other modes of assessing the teacher's performance. Did you support the new system? What was your thinking behind that? If you did not support the new teacher evaluation system, what kinds of reasonings do you have?
Yes, along with the previous question, yes, I did support the teacher evaluation system because I believe that in any job, it's not fair to the person working that job if there isn't an evaluation system. Okay, somebody needs to be able to measure how I'm performing. The voters measure how we perform. Okay, and somebody needs to be doing that. And just because I've been here for 30 years doesn't mean that I'm performing well in some jobs. I mean, tenure is a good thing. It's a good thing for seniority. It's a good thing for vacation. It's a good thing for a lot of things. But everyone should be held accountable for their jobs. But you got to give them fair standards. You can't have. I've worked with A+ in Pittsburgh schools, and the evaluation system was like initially these city schools wanted all the way down to 98% performing, to 10% performing excellent, 70% performing good, and the other ones need a little improvement, and the other ones dissatisfactory, like 0.5%. It doesn't work that way. You have to. It's only fair to the employee, which would be your teachers, and to the student. I've actually known teachers in the public school system within the last few years that they've left that couldn't use a computer. I mean, how do you get by teaching in a public school and not know how to use a computer today? It just doesn't fly. So there was a need for this it's a good basic starting point, the way I look at it. And if it needs tweak, we can go back and tweak it. But I think teachers and employees have a right to know that they're being evaluated, have a right to a fair evaluation, and have a right to have their poor work performance, if it is, a chance to improve. Because it's only fair for children. And if they decide not to improve, they have two choices. They can leave and find another occupation, or they can be terminated. But the chances are there for them to improve. And I think the majority of them do. We all become lackadaisical sometimes. When we're doing our job, everything seems like it's routine. With teaching, there is no routine about it. You've got to stay up on it. You've got to keep moving forward, because you kids are brighter than most of us, really. I mean, we have to challenge you, and to challenge you is a job itself. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
My turn?
Indeed.
Well, part of my career, 27 years with the police department, I spent 5 years in the public schools and Catholic schools when I did the DARE program in Shader area. And I will go back to my statement. Most teachers are good teachers. Just like policemen, most policemen do. You got some bad ones. So part of either trying to help them become better at what they do, or fire them up again, put that fire in their belly that goes out, is sometimes through evaluations. Now, I was a little leery of evaluations in the beginning. I spoke up in caucus about it, and I said, I just want to make sure we're fair to the teachers, because there's teachers sometimes who will get some students, especially, I can speak from the elementary level especially. There are some teachers who, when there's a child with special needs, or they need a little special attention, they'll always go to one or two teachers who just have that about them that they can handle those. But it says extra baggage that they have to do, and it may take more of their time. And you certainly don't want to make a teacher look bad because maybe that teacher has more students who need more time, or the student in there that absorbs all their time. You know, you have one student in class, they can really kill a classroom. I mean, I know it. I was in high school. We had some guys in high school that just totally destroyed the class. And I didn't like them. I thought it was disrespectful to the teacher. But it totally ruined the whole class. And the teacher, you know, can only take so much. Because you've got to remember, these teachers, 9 months out of the year, who spends more quality time with your children than maybe even some of the parents do? The teachers do. They have them all day. And then you come home from work, you put maybe supper together, and you sit down and you have a quick meal. Then you sit down and maybe, hopefully, you do this. You talk to them about school, go through school work with them. But then all of a sudden they got to get ready for bed and go to bed because sleep's important. So think 5 days out of the week for 9 months, the quality time that these teachers spend with your kids. And then they sometimes get bad-mouthed because, well, they got the whole summer off. Well, first of all, they don't have the whole summer off. Okay? But the other part is, I want you to think of each one of you who have children. In August, you're saying to yourself, because I said it, when are these kids going back to school? They're driving me crazy. And those teachers have anywhere from 18 to 20-some kids in a class, all different personalities, all different characters, all different levels of expectation educationally, and they got to bring that all together and make it work. And that's why I was very leery about the evaluation systems. I support them in the end because there was about, I think, approximately 100 teachers that got together and worked on that, and this is what they come up with. But if we got to change it, I'll fight to change it. I want it to be fair. But it's not fair when teachers go in there and give, because I'll tell you what, every day is a performance. You got to go in and actually perform in that classroom to inspire those children to do it. I know. I did it for 5 years teaching their program, life skills. And it was more than just drugs. but you had to go and perform. On Friday, I'd drive back to the police station, I'd say, I'm exhausted. I am utterly exhausted. I can't wait for the weekend. And so, you know, listen, teachers are worth their weight in gold. And some of the most influential people in my life were teachers. Unfortunately, we're at a point now that, you know, we like to pay them more. But anybody in public service, whether it's a social worker, a teacher, a policeman, or someone else, you should go in that field because it's something you want to do. It's something inside you. You want to do it. And you may be worth your weight in gold. You just can't afford to pay you that because you're in public service. That's what we're at.
Try to be brief. It had already passed before I came to elected office, so I didn't have any say. I'm not opposed to some academic achievement being involved and being measured with the teacher's performance, but I'm very flexible to making sure that is a workable system. In the military, we had a Christmas tree, an evergreen tree, just picture the silhouette of a Christmas tree, you know, and that was sort of the evaluation system. You've got some at the very top, a little further down, but as the base of the tree widens, that's the bulk of your people, your teachers, you know. And you've got some that are up there, they're stars, they glisten and they shine. There's a couple down there at the trunk. And maybe you got to chop them off. So that's, you know, how do we find that fairest system? And I think that's a good analogy to try to bring with statistical data as to how they're performing. But, you know, there's that intangible with the teachers. The senator says inspire. You know, that's the beauty that the teachers have. They get to reach out and touch, and they might not know or see what they do to these kids, but as they go on and they circulate back around, you know, when they see them in the grocery store, they read about them. I still keep in touch with coaches and teachers from years ago, and I know my mom does. And, you know, I was just home for Thanksgiving. We talk about so and so and so and so, and it's just amazing. And that's the beauty that the teacher gets that maybe a lot of other professions don't get. So.
Thank you very much. I'm going to invite our students to come up to collect cards, and we're going to have, there's a whole variety show this evening here, so we're going to change topics yet again. So this is going to start again with Senator Blakovich. The current funding formula for charter and cyber schools is something that's already becoming part of our cards. That was one of the topics that you received. It's doing many different things to our funding system, the education system, the mobility of students, and one way of looking at it is that the schools allow, having the current funding formula allows these kinds of schools to make large profits at the expense of taxpayers, because these institutions are reimbursed for costs at the individual district level and for costs that are not incurred, by, for example, in the charter school or the cyber school. Do you support some of the changes to this funding formula for cyber and charter schools? And if yes, what kinds of changes would you propose?
Well, I think the answer is probably in your question, as far as my answer goes. Look, the charter schools some time ago were actually created through the public school system. They actually put the charter schools there, and whatever the argument was. I actually have a history of it someone gave me, and I haven't had time to read it yet. But I am probably, there hasn't been a charter school reform bill that has satisfied me yet. I want an equal playing field for charter schools, cyber, regular bricks and mortar charter, and the school district. And I can tell you that I've had about 3 meetings since I became senator. I meet with my school superintendents. Now, I don't have Butler anymore. I used to have Butler County, too. I used to bring them all in. We would meet and we would talk about these issues. And they know how I feel about charter schools. There's a need for them. I have nothing against them. I think the cyber charter schools have just been way out of whack with their funding. They need to be reined in a little bit. But we have to be fair to them. We don't just say, well, it's so bad now, we're really going to hammer you on this. No, let's just be fair about it. The bricks and mortar schools, they're not quite as bad as the cyber charter schools as far as the funding formula goes. But we have to be fair to them, too. because there's some children that charter schools just great for. But I think I support the public schools that say, you know what, we're going to start our own cyber charter school. I'm okay with that. And then the money stays there. You know, the thing about the charter school people, they always say, well, you're sending the money to us. So now we should get it because you're not educating that child anymore. Well, you know, it'd be nice if everybody from, say, the third grade left and went to some charter schools. Then you would have truly one less need for a teacher. You could lay a teacher off or something like that. But it doesn't work that way. You have a student here, a student there, a student there, and you still have the same cost to run this facility. You still have the same cost. So you are taking money away. But students deserve a good education. And if a child collectively, between school district and parents, you get together and say, you know what, charter school might not be bad, that's fine. Let's send them there. We ended the double dip, which was ridiculous in Social Security. We give them money up front, and then give them money also on the Social Security. I mean, it was crazy. So we ended that. But we need to be balanced between charter schools, cyber charter schools, and the school districts. And I am vehemently against trying to just pass a bill that's I don't like warm fuzzy feeling bills that don't mean something. I really don't. And I don't support bills like that. You come into me with some bill and I say, okay, I'll do the bill, knowing darn well I'm not going to push it and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to do it, and it ain't going anywhere. And sometimes they just don't do that. They'll put these bills in just to satisfy people, but that creates problems. It really does.
Right, now we'll pass it over to the other side of the section. Get the representative.
So Fox Chapel School District's, a $30 million project going on here with an auditorium and some other additions that you're doing. And that's going to be in the tax bill for future years. So the cyber charter, they don't have an auditorium. But when you calculate what the dollar is per student for Fox Chapel, if they want to go to a charter school, it's going to be a high number. And that charter school has reached out and they want those students because there's some profitable margin there. They're not paying for an auditorium in my example or other things. So we did take away the pension double dip, which was good. But there is still some some profitability in the charter schools, which creates problems. Let me talk out both sides of my mouth. A student in, let's say, Philadelphia or Pittsburgh School District is having a challenging time, a challenging environment. It's just not safe. I don't think that individual doesn't get a chance to come and get a learning opportunity. And that's the rub of the whole thing. That's the balance. There is certainly a place for a charter in cyber schools. There are students that just don't do well interacting as much, or they've got busy schedules. They're very gifted, or they're very talented, and they're doing other things, and the school time frame just doesn't fit or accommodate their schedule for them to advance. So again, another challenge. There's certainly a place for them, but it's a balance.
Again, I think we're just going to beat a dead horse here because what has been said is said, and that's true. There has to be a level playing field here because the cost of running this building, whether there's one teacher in this classroom and 3 students or 50 students in this classroom, will still be the same for this classroom for that day. So we have to make sure that we keep an eye on this, we revisit it, because let's face it, a charter cyber school is not going to cost what it costs us to send our kids here. And they should not be getting the exact funding that we are paying per student here. So, because it's unfair to the school district, it's unfair to the students in this school, because you're taking away money and resources that they would normally get. So we have to be very careful on making sure that we maintain a close eye on how this process is working. We've passed some things, we've made some reform, but I don't think the reform is quite as far as it should have gone. I agree with Senator Milakovich, and I think that we need to keep, like I said, keep a close eye on it and make sure the money goes where it's needed. If it's needed there, fine, but if it isn't, then we need to make sure it goes where it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I think what I'm going to do too is to continue the round here with Representative English speaking next, but I'd like to go to question 9 versus 8 because it dovetails very well with what the gentlemen have just been talking about. When you're thinking about a piece of legislation, for example, cyber charter schools or funding or teaching evaluation, and you're trying to understand how these have important content as well as specific consequences for students and for teachers, how do you go about determining your vote? How do you get input on your decisions? How do you assess the community for their input? And that's certainly of interest to many folks here. We've got many, many cards that are very interested in knowing how they can communicate with you and how you go about getting information to make your votes.
I'm sure the answer for every representative or senator is they try the best they can. Me personally, I like to go and be in the back of the room and listen and absorb. I don't like these kind of forums because we just go blah blah blah, and you have a bunch of questions and you really did not get to ask.
We do have cookies afterwards, though, so I'm sure they'll hang around and they'll
I'm playing a cookie game at 10:30. So.
There will be a chance for you to get positive.
Yeah, we've structured the exit.
Okay, good. But what I think has worked very well for me is I just have these little speak with hows, and I set them up throughout the districts. I just picked up Richland Township, so I'm going to be there Saturday and Tuesday morning and one of the nights, and then middle of the day, just trying to hit everyone's schedule so that they have a chance to come and talk one-on-one environment. When you have the large group settings, I think there's always lots of times there's a person or a topic that just kind of dominates it, and I think people get frustrated in those. So the more small group interactions or one-on-ones works for me. But I still like to hear the large group settings, but I don't like being up here. I like being back there to hear what other teachers or administrators or just residents are actually saying and interacting. It's just more my style personally. And all that kind of goes into what is the bill about. Again, I get a chance to interact with people and ask, because the bills kind of come, it's not just one at a time. They're rolling in, and you're trying to juggle all these. And it's great when I can sit down with a real person and say, so you're a cop. There's something that's rolling through. Let me ask you about this. And it might be someone from the other part of town that I'm just interacting with. Or, like I said, I'm playing hockey later. I'll be in the locker room. Mayor Peduto's on my team. So that's just kind of nice. We kind of get a little, not that we're have a bunch of substantive time, but it's a little bit of dialogue. But there's other guys in the locker room, and I can ask them. So those things work for me, and I think everyone's got their own methodology.
Thank you. I think diversity is a good thing when you look at, when you're evaluating a bill, because it's the first thing you look at. The legislature is a very diverse body of people. And somewhere in that legislature, if you start knowing your colleagues, you know who the police officers are, who the lawyers are, who the doctors are, who is, and when there are bills like that, and you have a trusted colleague, you go ask them about the bill. You ask the people that you know in that field. You read up as much as you can about the bill. You read the legislation. You may ask the sponsor of the bill, what are you trying to achieve here? And then you must, like in my case, I pull out an iPhone or computer. Senator Milakovich would pull out a big fat stack of paper with a highlighter. And it's a private joke between us, but he does. And he does a great job of it. But it's very important that you use the resources that are available to you. Ask. This is not a job for know-it-alls. There's a lot of people out there that do believe they know it all. They believe that my bill is the bill and that's the way it should be, and there's no changing it. But believe me, just like Representative English said, sitting back there, my dad told me when I was younger, 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for a reason. Look and listen and keep your mouth shut until you know what you're saying. And you'd be surprised how much you can absorb and learn doing that. So I don't vote on a bill unless I do as much research as I can for it. And I think in being out in the district and being amongst the people, you're a representative. I don't know how you represent people if you never go out into your district and see people and talk to people, because you will get the pulse. You may not always agree with what they say, but you need to be out there, and that's where you learn about the bills and how it affects everybody in their daily life. Like a teacher, I know teachers, and it's a great profession. I got the most respect in the world for them. The teachers, you guys will know. Teacher, names you remember. My first grade teacher was Mrs. Hannah. Come on, that was 10 years ago. But again, you look into it, you talk to the people. They're the ones that know. You talk to the experts, the people who are in the field. I didn't vote on these bills for teachers' evaluations and stuff without talking to teachers and getting their input, without talking to the unions. Unions represent a big body, but when you talk to the teachers in the unions, sometimes you get a different story, you get the true story, and you need to know that. But you also need to have a way to tweak it if you have to later on, so that you don't hurt anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I particularly appreciate each of your comments about trying to find a diversity of opinions, getting people in very different walks of life, perhaps enjoying the time in the men's locker room, but also getting a chance to talk to the women who are also out there.
I plan to go everything, so.
All right, wonderful. Andre, great. Before I turn it over to Senator Balakovich, what we've decided is, this is actually a wonderful question to end the formal part of the evening on. We do have one or two questions from the group of questions that have come in. So if you do have a card to give to a student, please look to the end of your aisle to hand that in. But I'm going to give Senator Balakovich his time on this question, and then give each of you your last summative statement that you'd like to leave us with. Thank you.
What? You want me to answer the question?
Yeah, this question.
Oh, okay.
And then,
All right.
and then you'll each get a chance to make a last comment.
Okay, all right. I read a lot, and I want to tell you, and I'm going to say this just for some of the kids in here. When I went to school back in the 50s, we didn't have many special classes for anyone. You kind of were in the classroom, and they kind of looked at you, and they put you in little sections and pay a little attention to. I went to the Catholic school system. I went to All Saints in Edmonton, which is now closed, and I went to North Catholic. Got a year in Duquesne, but my father passed away, and I had to quit and help out my mother. But I was a poor reader. And to this day, I'm a poor reader. But I read it over and over again. And when I don't understand something, I call someone up and I ask them. Absent my great looks. I'm just a very ordinary person, expected to do extraordinary things. So the best I can do is talk to people, read the subject matter, ask a lot of questions. Maybe the doc here will replace Dr. Lee, who used to be at Chamber. That's my own ground there. I used to call him all the time.
I'm not looking for
I used to call him all the time. And Dr. Linda Hipper over the AIU, who is a great friend of mine. I would call her up. She had a lot to do with the charter schools positions that I developed over a period of time, talking to her and the other superintendents in my school district between Allegheny County and Butler County, and also on teacher evaluations. So I seek out as much as I can, and prayers help. Every Sunday I go to church twice, beginning of Mass, middle of Mass at the opportunity. I say a prayer that is, it's funny in a way, it's a prayer that they use with the steps for people addicted to alcohol. But God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it's all about wisdom, and you learn the wisdom by talking to people who have been through it, who are knowledgeable of it, And I always keep an open mind. I threw my ideology out the window a long time ago. So I always try to keep my mind. Even when I have formed a position on something, I still have just a little bit of gap there. That if someone says something and I say, you know what, I never thought of that. And I open it up and I rethink it again. That's what you do. The best thing you can do. Because I'll tell you what, I have on occasion, maybe 2 or 3 times voted for a bill and thought, why did I vote for that bill? And boy, I don't like that feeling. It's a sick feeling. So that's what I do. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's back on. All right, I'm going to give each of you a chance to make a closing comment. I think it's interesting to think of your being willing to come and engage with the public and to share your expertise and your energy for working with kids. One of the questions that came through is, what can we do to encourage younger people also to get involved in government and to act so that their interests and needs are also represented as we move forward? You can fight for who's go first.
Well, thanks to Dr. Friedman and the students and the administrators for having us here. These things are important. It might be a little boring to you, I'm sorry. But it's exciting work. You never know what's going to happen or come up each day. You never know how things are going to develop. As far as the students, you have to be engaged. You really do. I think politicians, we worry and kowtow to the seniors more so than youngsters, like 18 and older, because they vote, and you're missing your chance to get represented. They're smart enough to know that their vote matters, and that's always a problem. In my perfect world, 100 people would go and vote, and maybe 2 would vote for me, and 1 would vote for my opponent, but 97 people would exercise their right to vote and say, I don't like either of them. That would send a strong message. Now, that's my utopia. It's not going to happen. But instead, I could get to walk around and go, ooh, I beat my opponent. I doubled what they got in the number of votes. That's really not a true measure. So, as far as the students, I think you really need to be involved and engaged. You have to read, you have to keep learning, you have to keep asking questions. And that's for all the middle-aged, that's for all the gray-haired people as well. That does not change. I'd like to see you register to vote, go out and vote, even if you don't vote for anyone. Exercise your right to vote. I think that's very important. Ask if you can go be an intern in any field that you're interested in. See if you can tag along, because if you want a job as a school teacher, you better understand what that's like. If you want a job as a law enforcement or out in the woods as a forester, you better understand what that's about before you put all your time and energy and dollars into making that your trade or vocation. So, the teachers are here to inspire and here to educate us, but it's up to you to do the work. They're the seeds, and they try to help you along, but it's up to you. And you're only going to achieve what you put into it.
Well, I hope tonight, looking at the 3 of us, there's a Republican senator, a Republican House member, and a Democratic House member. We've dispelled any kind of myth that we don't talk to each other, we're not friends, because that's absolutely wrong. Okay? We do. Sometimes we disagree on policies and legislation and things like that. But it's just like, 2 guys in this school in a wrestling match. They get into the match, they fight hard in the ring, and afterwards they're friends. And, you're friends even when you're in the ring, but your idea is to win that contest. Well, this isn't a contest because we're supposed to be here for all of the same reason, which benefits our constituents in the Commonwealth. And that's very true. And the younger that you are, if you're thinking about politics, think about what I've said about some of the media outlets and some of the public perceptions. The public perceptions about us, that we're money grabbers, we do this, we do that, and we don't care, and we don't work. If you look at the public and they say the legislature gets done June 30th, and they have a word in the Constitution that says recess. that we're in recess. What does recess say to you? We're out in the schoolyard playing. Well, June 30th, our budget's done, and July 1st, guess what? We're home in the district, and that office isn't vacant. I've had people call and say, how's your vacation going? I said, what did you call? They called my office. I said, you spent your vacation in your office. So I can tell you this, that if you're looking for politics, don't ever let any bad PR out there say that you shouldn't run for something. I don't need that aggravation or anything, because it's got to have thick skin to be here. But it's good to have good friends. And I've met a number of very good people there. And they do very good work. And they work very hard, just like your teachers and your administrators here. So please, like Representative English said, get out there, exercise your right to vote, because it's very important. They look at voting blocks, folks. If you're 18 to 24, be surprised. If you start voting, be surprised how many people start listening to you. So don't think your vote doesn't count, because it does. Take a friend with you to vote. It only takes a couple of minutes. It's easy. It's computerized too. So, you can definitely do it the old way. You had to write it in or click it or something. But yeah, crank the lever down. So I like a slot machine, but it's computerized. It's real easy. And the write-ins are easy too. Just like President Mingley said, he got 2 votes, and 1 vote for his opponent, and everybody wrote in Mickey Mouse or somebody else, and the other, 70 and 97 votes. That's fine, because it tells them you're to be satisfied. So please, exercise that right. And God bless you. And thank you for letting us be here. It's my honor and privilege to be here with you folks. And please, be safe through the holidays and take care of yourselves. Thank you.
Senator Velazquez, you have our last word.
Okay. Well, those of you that are interested in any public service, and specifically, I guess, this question will be directed to the elected office, don't let our shortfalls, our mistakes, and we sometimes make fools out of ourselves. Don't let that turn you off. My father went to 6th grade. That was it. My mother went to 8th grade. They were determined that I would finish college. That was their dream. To make the world and make our family just a little better than when they came in. You want your kids to always do a little better and move up. And it didn't play out for me, because my father died, when I was 14. And so it didn't play out for me. But, if you would have ever said that I was going to be a state representative, state senator, I would have told you were nuts. I mean, I was going to retire, get a part-time job, and I was going to do volunteer work for some charitable organization, just in that line. And then all of a sudden somebody got in trouble, and because I was a police officer, they came to me. And I don't know how it all happened, but I went for a house and I won. And then somebody else got themselves in trouble, and they came to me, and I said no for months. And then the last week before, when everything was all decided, I said, okay, I'm in for Senate. We make mistakes. But your job in the younger generation is the mistakes that Representative Costa makes, Representative Hal English makes, or Senator Lockridge makes. We need younger people to come in and not make those same mistakes. That's part of the wisdom factor, which is very important. And so don't let our bad behavior set you down, because every generation wants to make make it a little better for the next generation. So, keep that in mind, and know that there's a story called Starfish. One day, this boy's walking along the beach, and he's picking things up and he's slinging them into the ocean. And there's this older gentleman behind him. He's out for his morning walk, and he sees the the young boy ahead of him, and he's looking at him and he's thinking, what's he doing up there? So he catches up to the young person. He says, what are you doing here, young man? He says, I'm picking up these starfish and I'm throwing them into the water. And the elderly man looked at him and he said, well, why are you doing that? And he said, well, if I don't, he said, the morning sun and the receding tide, he said, the starfish is surely going to die. So he said, well, how can you possibly make a difference? Look at all the starfish on here. So the young boy, as young children are, they a little twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face. He picked up one of the starfish and he threw it into the water. And he looked back with a bigger smile and a more twinkle in his eye, and he said to the older man, he said, well, make a difference to that one. So, one person can make a big difference, and one person with wisdom can be a majority. One person with courage can be the majority. Try to be the best you can be. Try not to ever think you're more than what you are. Never promise that which is not yours to give. We make that mistake all the time. And maybe say a serenity prayer. I think we'll have a little bit of growth. So, God bless you and have a good Christmas.
Thank you very, very much, gentlemen, for being with us this evening. It's wonderful to hear all the energy you have, the way you're advocates for public education, the respect that you have for educators, and the recognition that this is a complex issue, but it benefits all of us. And at this point, I'd like to invite our 3 high school introducers to come up. They have something special for each of you. As they came from the Fox Chapel District. Thank you. It's nice for the folks who are watching this on camera this evening. We have a very full room, a wonderful crowd here tonight. And I welcome and appreciate that so many of you came out for this evening. It's Thursday night. And it was a very fun session. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Freeman and invite you, after the session is over, to mingle. We've got many things on the information table, and of course, we have a cooking table.
As a former teacher, I'm always a teacher, and a question that I always get very briefly, I got to say this, I'm sorry I wasn't missing anything, about the questions, and for our kids and for our community members who are not educators. And we have an expert here, Mr. Doug McCausland, who's our Director of Business Operations. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I am wrong sometimes. The pension crisis is a huge issue. I just want to make sure that we all have the same story here and that I am correct. School districts do not have the liberty to choose what they send in for pension contributions. We are required to send in, so whether we have good finances or not so good finances, we have to turn in what the requirement is. And I think our pension contribution is around 19% of salaries.
It's 21.7.
I was wrong, 21% of our salary. So I just wanted to clarify that for our students. And with that, I just want to say thank you to our legislators for taking time out of their schedule to be here to do this. I have learned so much. Thanks to Ms. Jean Klein. Please stand up. And all of her smart and good-looking students from her AP U.S. Government class. Would you all stand up? Also, thanks for the League of Women Voters to help provide resource materials that you can certainly take home with you. Thanks to the school board here for not looking at me and saying you're crazy when I said, could we do this? I appreciate their support. And also our parents that are here. There's different parent organizations. We have PALS, PAGE, District Forum, but it's all parents that care about this district, that have a voice. And those are the people that I'm glad are here because they'll go out and talk about it. So thank you all ladies. And the ladies that are a part of all these groups, or men, please stand up. I told you I was going to do that. Our local ministerial group for helping us get the information out. A special thanks to a new friend I have made here, and that's Dr. Maureen Porter. She has done a bang-up job with this, professional, putting this thing together and spending a lot of her time doing this. Thank you, Dr. Porter. I do need to embarrass one other person, Bonnie. Step up, please. Yay! As Mr. English said, he loves to get comments, so we're going to now disband, go out, have cookies, and ask questions of these fine gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great night.